A terrifying first-day thaw. Morning sun painted the Manhattan skyline in shades of gold and amber as Gemma Hayes stood before the glass tower of Ashford Design Group. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. This was it. Her dream job. Or at least, that's what she had thought when she received the offer letter 3 weeks ago. She adjusted the collar of her navy blue blazer for the 10th time and took a deep breath. The building stretched 50 stories into the sky. It was all gleaming glass and steel that reflected the morning chaos of New York City. Inside the lobby, everything screamed wealth and power. The marble floors were so polished she could see her reflection, and the modern art pieces scattered around probably cost more than her entire college education. Miss Hayes? A woman with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun approached her. I'm Patricia Monroe, head of human resources. Welcome to Ashford Design Group. Thank you, Gemma managed, her voice sounding smaller than she intended. Mr. Ashford is waiting for you on the 40th floor. I must warn you, Patricia paused, her expression softening slightly. He's very particular about punctuality and performance. Don't take his manner personally. He's like that with everyone. Elevator ride felt endless. Gemma watched the numbers climb, each floor bringing her closer to a man whose reputation preceded him. Derek Ashford. The youngest CEO in the architectural design industry. Brilliant, ruthless, impossible to work for. She had heard the stories. His last 3 assistants had quit within months. Meeting the boss, the elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. A young man at the desk pointed toward massive wooden doors at the end of the hall. He's expecting you. Go right in. Gemma's heels clicked against the hardwood as she walked. Each step felt heavier than the last. She raised her hand to knock, but before her knuckles could touch the wood, a sharp voice called out, "You're late." She pushed the door open to find an office that took up nearly half the floor. Windows wrapped around 2 walls, offering a breathtaking view of the city. But Gemma barely noticed. Her attention was fixed on the man standing with his back to her, hands clasped behind him. Derek Ashford turned around, and Gemma felt the air leave her lungs. He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair that was slightly too long and sharp features that looked carved from stone. His gray suit fit perfectly, and his eyes were the coldest shade of blue she had ever seen. I'm not late, Mr. Ashford. The appointment was for 9 o'clock. It's 8:58. His eyebrow lifted slightly. In this office, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. First lesson. Gemma bit back a response. She needed this job. Her student loans wouldn't pay themselves, and her mother's medical bills kept piling up. I understand. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't. He moved to his desk, a massive piece of furniture made from dark wood that matched the doors. I've reviewed your portfolio. Your work at university was adequate. Adequate. The word stung. She had graduated top of her class, won awards, received praise from every professor. But she swallowed her pride. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me for stating facts. He opened a folder on his desk. Your responsibilities are simple. You manage my schedule, handle all communications, review project proposals before they reach my desk, and most importantly, you anticipate problems before they become disasters. My last assistant failed at all of these tasks. I trust you'll do better. I'll do my best. Your best isn't good enough. I need perfection. He looked up at her, those ice blue eyes examining her like she was a building blueprint with flaws. I don't have time for mistakes, emotions, or excuses. Do you understand? Yes, Mr. Ashford. Good, your desk is outside. Start by organizing these files. He gestured to a stack of folders that looked impossibly tall. I need them categorized by project type, date, and budget level by noon. Then you'll prepare the conference room for a meeting at 2. The clients are from Tokyo, so everything must be perfect. Gemma took the stack of files, struggling slightly under the weight. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Miss Hayes, one more thing. I saw in your file that you're single, no children, no significant other, good relationships or distractions. They make people weak and unreliable. Keep your personal life non-existent, and we'll get along fine. The words felt like a slap. How dare he judge her personal life? But again, she held her tongue. Understood, sir. The crisis hits the morning past in a blur of activity. Gemma organized the files with a system that made sense, prepared the conference room to perfection, and even managed to fix a scheduling conflict that would have caused problems later. By the time the Tokyo clients arrived, everything was ready. She watched through the glass walls as Derek conducted the meeting. He was different with clients. Charming, even. He smiled, made jokes, and listened intently. It was like watching a completely different person. When the clients left 2 hours later, they were laughing and shaking his hand warmly. The moment they were gone, the mask dropped. Derek's face returned to its usual cold expression. Miss Hayes, get me the Henderson project files. Now. She hurried to find them, but as she searched the filing system, her phone buzzed. It was Patricia from HR. Gemma, we have a problem. The Henderson project files were supposed to be delivered this morning, but they never arrived. Someone in the courier company made an error. Derek doesn't know yet. Gemma's blood ran cold. She looked toward Derek's office. He was on the phone, pacing. When he hung up, he called out to her. Where are those files? She walked to his door, her heart racing. Mr. Ashford, there's been a situation with the courier company. The files were not delivered as scheduled. His face changed. The cold expression turned to ice. What do you mean they weren't delivered? There was an error. I'm working to locate them now. Working to locate them? The presentation to the Henderson Group is tomorrow morning. Without those files, we lose a $20 million contract. His voice was quiet, but somehow that made it more terrifying. Do you understand what you've done? Sir, I didn't arrange the courier. That was done before I started. I don't care about excuses. For the first time, he raised his voice. Find those files, or find another job. Locked in for the night, the afternoon turned into evening as Gemma made call after call, trying to track down the missing files. Derek worked in his office, his face growing darker with each passing hour. Finally, at 7 o'clock, she got a lead. The files had been delivered to the wrong building across town. I can have them here by 9, she told Derek. Not good enough. I need them now. We have to review every page and prepare the presentation. That takes at least 8 hours. He stood up, grabbing his jacket. Get your things. We're going to retrieve them ourselves. They drove in tense silence through the Manhattan traffic. When they finally reached the building and recovered the files, it was nearly 9:30. Back at the office, Derek led her to his private office. We'll work here. It's more secure. He began spreading documents across a large table near the windows. Gemma rolled up her sleeves and joined him. Page after page, blueprint after blueprint. They worked in silence, broken only by Derek's occasional sharp instructions. At midnight, Gemma's stomach growled loudly. She blushed, embarrassed, but Derek just sighed and pulled out his phone. What do you eat? Anything is fine. It's not an answer. Chinese? Italian? American? Italian, please. He ordered food and they kept working. When it arrived, they ate quickly, barely tasting the pasta. Gemma noticed that Derek seemed more human somehow. Maybe it was the late hour, or maybe the crisis had stripped away some of his armor. Why architecture? He asked suddenly. The question surprised her. I'm sorry, why did you choose this field? Most people do it for money or prestige. Which one are you? Gemma set down her fork. Neither. I chose it because buildings tell stories. Every structure is a statement about what we value, what we dream about, how we see ourselves. I wanted to be part of creating those stories. Derek studied her for a long moment. That's a naive answer. Maybe, but it's honest. He almost smiled. Almost. Honesty is rare in this business. They returned to work. At 2 in the morning, Derek suddenly stood and walked to the door. Gemma heard a clicking sound. What are you doing? She asked. Locking us in. The security system changes at 2. If someone wanted to sabotage this project, now would be the time. This office has its own security protocol. No one gets in or out until I unlock it. Gemma felt a flutter of panic. You're locking us in? For security. Don't worry, Miss Hayes. Your virtue is safe. His tone was mocking, but his eyes looked tired rather than cruel. That's not what I'm worried about. Then what? She hesitated. I don't like confined spaces. It makes me feel trapped. Something flickered across his face. Understanding? Sympathy? It was gone before she could identify it. We'll be done in a few hours. Focus on the work. But as they continued reviewing documents, Gemma couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The office felt smaller suddenly. The city lights outside seemed distant, and Derek Ashford, the cold, impossible boss, seemed less like a villain and more like a man carrying weight he never let anyone see. An unexpected discovery at 4 in the morning, Gemma found something odd in the project files. Mr. Ashford, look at this. Came to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. What am I looking at? These numbers don't match. The budget calculation here shows one amount, but the supporting documents show something completely different. It's off by nearly $2 million. Derek's jaw tightened. He grabbed the papers and studied them carefully. This isn't an error. This is deliberate. Someone altered these documents. Who would do that? Someone who wants this project to fail. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Frank, I need you to check something. Access the project files from the main server and tell me who made changes to the Henderson budget documents in the last week. He waited, his expression growing darker. Thank you. He hung up and looked at Gemma. My business partner, Justin Crawford, made unauthorized changes 3 days ago. Your partner is sabotaging the project. It appears so. Justin has been pushing to sell the company to a larger firm. I refused. This is his way of forcing my hand. If we lose the Henderson contract, the board will vote to sell. Gemma saw real emotion on his face for the first time. Pain, betrayal, anger, all carefully controlled but visible. What do we do? She asked. Derek looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. We fix the documents with the correct numbers, pair the presentation with the accurate data, and tomorrow I deal with Justin. But first I need to thank you. If you hadn't caught this, we would have walked into that meeting with fraudulent documents. It would have destroyed everything. I was just doing my job. You were doing more than that. You were paying attention. You cared about getting it right. He paused, and for a moment the ice in his eyes melted slightly. I misjudged you, Miss Hayes. You're better than adequate. You're exceptional. The compliment caught her off guard. Heat rose to her cheeks. Thank you, Mr. Ashford. Derek. When it's just us, call me Derek. The use of his first name felt strange on her tongue, too personal, too intimate. But she nodded. Derek. They worked through the rest of the night, fixing the documents and preparing the presentation. As dawn began to break over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Gemma realized something had shifted between them. The wall Derek had built around himself had developed a crack, small but significant. When Derek finally unlocked the office door at 6 in the morning, they were both exhausted but satisfied. The presentation was perfect. The documents were accurate. They had saved the project. Go home and get some rest, Derek said. The meeting isn't until 10. I'll handle it from here. Are you sure? I can stay and help. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You've done enough. More than enough. Thank you, Gemma. Dum-da-da-da. The use of her first name sent a warm feeling through her chest. As she gathered her things and headed for the elevator, she couldn't help but glance back. Derek stood at his window, watching the sunrise. And for the first time since she'd met him, he didn't look like an untouchable CEO. He looked like a man who had been alone for too long. The morning after, Gemma didn't go home. Instead, she found a quiet coffee shop 3 blocks from the office and ordered the strongest espresso they had. Her mind was racing too fast for sleep. The events of the night kept replaying in her head. Derek's vulnerability when he discovered the betrayal. The way his voice had softened when he called her by her first name. The crack in his armor? She shook her head. This was dangerous territory. He was her boss. A man who had made it clear that emotions were weaknesses. She couldn't afford to read too much into a few kind words, spoken in the exhaustion of an all-night work session by 9:30. She was back at the office, freshly showered and wearing a change of clothes she kept in her gym bag. The receptionist looked surprised to see her. "Miss Hayes?" "Mr. Ashford said you had the morning off." "I know, but I want to be here for the Henderson meeting, just in case he needs anything." She settled at her desk and reviewed the presentation one final time. Everything was perfect. At 9:45, 3 men in expensive suits arrived. The Henderson Group executives. Derek emerged from his office looking impossibly fresh, despite having been awake for over 24 hours. He wore a different suit, which meant he kept spare clothes at the office. His eyes found Gemma immediately. Something flickered across his face. Surprise. Pleasure? Relief? Before she could analyze it, he turned to the clients with his professional smile. "Gentlemen, welcome. Please, come in." Gemma watched through the glass walls as Derek presented. He was masterful, confident, persuasive. The executives nodded, asked questions, and took notes. She could see them warming to the project. Leaning forward with interest, 40-5 minutes later, they emerged, shaking Derek's hand enthusiastically. "We'll have the contracts drawn up by tomorrow," the lead executive said. "This is exactly what we were hoping for." When they left, Derek caught Gemma's eye and gave her the smallest nod. They had won the confrontation, but the victory was short-lived. At 11 o'clock, a man stormed into the office. He was tall, with sandy blonde hair and the kind of handsome features that belonged in a magazine. But his face was twisted with anger. "Derek," he shouted, "we need to talk now." Derek stepped out of his office, his expression cold and controlled. "Justin." "I was expecting you." So this was Justin Crawford, the partner who had tried to sabotage the project. Gemma watched as the 2 men faced off in the middle of the office. Other employees had stopped working, sensing the tension. "You went behind my back," Justin hissed. "You fixed the documents and saved the Henderson deal. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I saved a $20 million contract. I protected this company. That's my job. Your job. This company should have been sold months ago. We could have walked away with $50 million each, but you're too stubborn and too sentimental about your father's legacy." Derek's voice dropped to a dangerous level. "My father built this company from nothing. I won't let you destroy it for a quick payout. Your father is dead, Derek. When are you going to accept that?" Justin's words were cruel, calculated to wound. "You've turned this place into a prison. Everyone walks on eggshells around you. You have no life, no relationships, nothing but this building, and your obsession with proving yourself worthy of a dead man's approval." Gemma saw Derek flinch. The words had hit their mark. She stood up without thinking, ready to intervene, but Derek held up a hand. "Get out, Justin. As of this moment, you're suspended pending an investigation into your alteration of company documents. Security will escort you from the building." Justin laughed bitterly. "You're making a mistake. The board won't support you on this. We'll see." Security. 2 guards appeared and led a protesting Justin toward the elevators. The office remained silent, everyone frozen in shock. Derek turned and walked back into his office, closing the door firmly behind him. Gemma waited 5 minutes before following. She knocked softly. "Derek, can I come in?" "I'm busy." She opened the door anyway. Derek stood at his window, his back to her, shoulders tight with tension. "I said I was busy." "No. But I also know you're not okay." "I'm fine. You're not." What Justin said was cruel and unfair. Derek turned to face her, and the pain in his eyes made her chest ache. Was it unfair? "Look at me, Gemma. I'm 35 years old. I have no friends outside of work. No family except a mother I barely see. No relationships because I'm too damaged to let anyone close." Justin was right about everything. He wasn't right about why you're protecting the company. You're not doing it for a dead man's approval. You're doing it because you believe in what your father built, because you have integrity, because you care about the 200 people who work here and depend on you. You don't know me well enough to make those judgments." Gemma took a step closer. "Maybe not, but I know what I saw last night. I saw a man who works until he's exhausted to get things right. A man who says thank you when he doesn't have to. A man who's been hurt by betrayal, but still tries to do the right thing. Derek looked at her for a long moment. Why are you here, Gemma? Why didn't you go home and rest like I told you? Because I wanted to make sure you were okay. Because despite everything, despite the impossible standards and the cold exterior, I actually care about what happens to you. The admission hung in the air between them. Derek's expression softened. You shouldn't care. I'm not worth it. Let me decide that for myself. Walls coming down, Derek gestured to the leather couch in his office. Sit, please. Gemma sat, and to her surprise, Derek sat beside her instead of maintaining his usual distance, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his presence. You ask why I chose architecture, Derek said quietly. Let me tell you why I did. My father was a carpenter. Not an architect, just a simple carpenter. But he loved buildings. He would take me to construction sites when I was a kid and explain how everything worked. Why certain materials were chosen. How weight was distributed. The beauty and structural integrity. Gemma listened, not daring to interrupt. When I was 16, he was diagnosed with cancer. Terminal, he had 6 months. In those 6 months, he worked every day to save money for my education. He died the week before I start. Ed College. Every building I design, every project I complete, it's my way of continuing the conversations we never got to finish. That's beautiful, Derek. It's also a prison. Justin was right about that part. I've let my father's memory become a cage. I work myself to exhaustion. I push everyone away. I tell myself it's dedication, but really it's fear. Fear that if I stop, if I let myself feel things or need people, I'll fall apart. But you didn't fall apart last night. When you discovered the betrayal, when everything could have collapsed, you stayed strong. You found a solution. That's not weakness. That's courage. Derek turned to look at her. Really look at her. How did you get so wise at 24? Life. My mom got sick when I was 20. Breast cancer. We caught it late. The medical bills destroyed our savings. I had to grow up fast, learn to be strong when I wanted to break down. So I understand what it's like to carry weight that feels too heavy. Is your mother okay now? Gemma's smile was sad. She's in remission, but the bills keep coming. That's why I needed this job so badly. Why put up with your impossible demands and your cold treatment? I couldn't afford to quit like your other assistants. I'm sorry. I didn't know. How could you? You never asked about my life? You told me to keep it non-existent, remember? Derek had the grace to look ashamed. I said a lot of things I shouldn't have. I treated you like a machine instead of a person. I'm sorry, Gemma. Truly. The sincerity in his voice made her throat tight. I forgive you. But Derek, you have to stop punishing yourself. Your father wouldn't want you to live like this. How do you know what he would want? Because he loved you. And people who love us want us to be happy, not martyrs to their memory. Derek reached out and took her hand. The gesture was so unexpected that Gemma's breath caught. His hand was warm, strong, and slightly rough, despite his expensive suits and executive lifestyle. Thank you, he said softly. For staying last night, for catching the sabotage, for being here now when you should be resting, for seeing past the walls I've built, for caring when I've given you every reason not to. Gemma's heart hammered. This moment felt significant, like standing at the edge of something that could change everything. Derek, I need to be honest with you about something. What? Last night, working with you, seeing the real you beneath the cold exterior, I felt something. Something I shouldn't feel for my boss. And I'm terrified because you made it clear that relationships are distractions, and I can't afford to lose this job. But I also can't keep pretending that I don't feel what I feel. Derek's thumb stroked across her knuckles, sending shivers up her arm. What if I told you that I felt it too? That somewhere between midnight and dawn, I realized that the walls I built to protect myself have just been making me lonely. What if I said that for the first time in years, I want to take a risk on something other than a business deal? I'd say that terrifies me even more. He smiled. a real smile that transformed his face. Good, because it terrifies me too. But maybe that means it's worth it. The truth revealed before either of them could say more, Gemma's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and froze. Derek, look at this. It was an email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "You need to know the truth about Derek Ashford." Derek leaned over to read the screen. His jaw tightened. Don't open it. Why not? Because it's probably from Justin. He's trying to poison you against me. Or maybe it's important. Gemma opened the email before. Derek could stop her. The message was brief. Ask Derek about the real reason his last 3 assistants quit. Ask him about Rebecca Torres. Gemma looked at Derek. His face had gone pale. Who's Rebecca Torres? Someone from my past. Someone I hurt. Tell me. Derek stood and walked to the window, putting distance between them. Rebecca was my assistant 2 years ago. She was brilliant, dedicated, everything I needed in a team member. We worked closely together. Too closely. Lines got blurred. We started a relationship. Gemma felt a knot forming in her stomach. What happened? I ended it. Badly. I told her it was a mistake, that I couldn't afford distractions, that business had to come first. She quit the next day. Since then, she's been sending messages to my new assistants, warning them about me, telling them I'm emotionally unavailable, that I'll use them and discard them. Is she right? Derek turned to face her. She was right about who I was then. I did put the business above everything else. I did hurt her because I was too afraid to admit I needed someone. But I'd like to think I've changed. That I'm changing. Especially after last night. How do I know this won't happen again? That you won't wake up tomorrow and decide this was all a mistake? You don't. I can't give you guarantees, Gemma. I can only promise to try. To be honest with you, to not run when things get difficult. Gemma's phone buzzed again. Another email. This time from an address she recognized. Patricia from HR. Derek, there's an emergency board meeting called for 3 o'clock this afternoon. Justin filed a formal complaint against you, claiming you're unfit to lead the company. Derek's expression hardened. Of course he did. He's going to try to turn the board against me. What are you going to do? Fight. But I need evidence. I need proof that Justin altered those documents deliberately to sabotage the Henderson deal. Gemma's mind raced. The server logs. Frank checked them last night. If we can present those logs to the board, along with the original documents and the altered versions, it will prove Justin's intent. That's not enough. The board will say, it could have been an honest mistake. I need more. What about his emails? If he was working with a competitor, there would be a trail. Derek's eyes lit up. You're right, Gemma. I need you to do something for me. It's not technically legal, but it's necessary. Justin's computer is still in his office. His emails might still be accessible if he didn't log out properly. Can you check? You want me to access his computer without authorization? I want you to save this company. But if you're not comfortable with it, I understand. Gemma thought about the 200 employees who would lose their jobs if Justin succeeded. She thought about Derek's father's legacy. She thought about the man sitting before her, finally willing to let someone in after years of isolation. Let's go. The race against time, they moved quickly through the office to Justin's suite. The door was still unlocked. Derek kept watch while Gemma sat at Justin's computer. The screen was still active, email open. He was in such a hurry to confront you that he forgot to log out, Gemma said, scrolling through messages. Derek, look at this. Email after email showed communication between Justin and executives at Morrison Design, their biggest competitor. Plans to undermine key projects. Promises of inside information in exchange for a position at Morrison once the company was sold. He's been plotting this for months, Derek said, his voice tight with anger. There's more. He was planning to blame you for the failed projects. He has fake documents that make it look like you approved budget overruns and deadline extensions. 8, print everything. We need hard copies for the board meeting. As the printer hummed to life, footsteps echoed in the hallway. They both froze. The door opened, and Justin stood there, his face twisted with rage. I knew you'd try something like this. Breaking into my office, stealing my private emails. The board will hear about this. The board will hear about your betrayal, Derek said, stepping protectively in front of Gemma. About how you've been selling company secrets to Morrison Design. About how you deliberately sabotaged projects to force a sale. You have no proof. Gemma held up the stack of printed emails. Actually, we do. Every email, every plan, every betrayal documented. Justin's face went red. You little thief. Do you know what you've done? I'll have you arrested for unauthorized access to private communications. Go ahead, Gemma said, surprised by her own courage. I'm willing to face those consequences if it means protecting 200 jobs and exposing your corruption. Justin lunged toward her, but Derek caught him by the arm. Don't even think about it. Let go of me. Not until you calm down. Security. Derek called out. The same two guards from earlier appeared. Escort Mr. Crawford from the building. He's not to return under any circumstances. As Justin was led away, shouting threats and accusations, Gemma's hands began to shake. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Derek pulled her into his arms, holding her close. You were amazing. Brave and brilliant and amazing. Gemma let herself lean into him, drawing strength from his presence. I can't believe I just did that. I can't. You're stronger than you know. He pulled back to look at her face. But there's something I need to tell you before the board meeting. Something important. What? After this is over, after we present the evidence and deal with Justin, I want to do this right. You and me. No more boss and assistant dynamics. I want to promote you to project manager, give you your own team. And outside of work, I want to take you to dinner. Real dates, not working dinners. I want to know everything about you. Your favorite color, your childhood dreams, what makes you laugh. Gemma's eyes filled with tears. Derek, you don't have to do this just because we went through something intense together. I'm doing this because last night, for the first time in years, I felt alive. You make me want to be more than just the cold CEO everyone fears. You make me want to be the man my father hoped I'd become. Not just successful, but happy. What if the board doesn't support you? What if Justin wins? Then we'll figure it out together. But either way, I'm not going back to the way things were. Life's too short to spend it alone behind walls. Standing before the boardroom was intimidating. 12 executives sat around a massive mahogany table, their faces stern and evaluating. Derek stood at the head of the table, Gemma beside him with the stack of printed emails. She could feel the weight of their scrutiny. Let's begin, said Margaret Phillips, the board chairwoman. She was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Crawford has filed serious allegations against you. Derek, he claims you've been making reckless decisions, alienating key partners, and creating a hostile work environment. He's requesting a vote of no confidence. I understand, Margaret. But before we proceed, I'd like to present evidence that Mr. Crawford has been engaged in corporate sabotage and espionage. A murmur ran through the board members. Derek nodded to Gemma, who distributed copies of the emails to each person at the table. What you're reading are communications between Justin Crawford and executives at Morrison Design, our primary competitor. As you can see, he's been selling confidential information for the past 6 months. He also deliberately altered budget documents on the Henderson project in an attempt to make us lose the contract, which would have weakened the company enough to force a sale. The board members read in silence, their expressions growing darker with each page. Margaret looked up, her face grim. These are serious accusations. How did you obtain these emails? Derek hesitated. This was the moment of truth. He could lie, claim Justin left his email open, but that would mean starting this new chapter of his life with dishonesty. My assistant. Miss Hayes accessed Mr. Crawford's computer after he left the building this morning. His email was still logged in. I take full responsibility for the decision to gather this evidence. It's unauthorized access to private communications, said Thomas Bradford, one of the older board members. Regardless of what these emails contain, the method of obtaining them is questionable. I understand that, Thomas. But I would argue that protecting the company from corporate espionage justifies the action. These emails prove that Justin intended to destroy everything my father built, and I wasn't about to let that happen without a fight. Margaret tapped her pen against the table. Miss Hayes, you accessed these emails? Gemma stood straighter, meeting the chairwoman's gaze. Yes, ma'am, I did. And I'd do it again. Mr. Crawford was planning to destroy this company and blame Mr. Ashford for failures he himself orchestrated. 200 employees would have lost their jobs. I couldn't stand by and let that happen. It's very noble, Thomas said dryly. But nobility doesn't excuse breaking the law. Actually, another board member, Patricia Young, spoke up. If these emails prove corporate espionage, they may be admissible as evidence. And company policy does allow for investigation of suspected security breaches. If we determine that Mr. Crawford's actions constituted a security threat, the access could be justified. Margaret nodded slowly. Patricia's right. The question before us isn't just about how the evidence was obtained, but whether the threat was real. She looked at Derek. The Henderson contract. You saved it? Yes. The presentation went perfectly this morning. They're drawing up contracts as we speak. $20 million over 3 years. And you were able to correct the budget documents Mr. Crawford altered? Yes. Miss Hayes discovered the discrepancies during our all-night work session. Without her attention to detail, we would have walked into that meeting with fraudulent numbers. Margaret's expression softened slightly as she looked at Gemma. You've been with us for how long, Miss Hayes? 1 day, ma'am. The room fell silent. Then Margaret laughed, a genuine sound of surprise. 1 day? You've been here 1 day and you've already saved a major contract and exposed corporate sabotage. I was doing my job, ma'am. Your job is to be an assistant. This goes far beyond that. Margaret turned to the rest of the board. I move that we dismiss the allegations against Derek Ashford and open a formal investigation into Justin Crawford's activities. All in favor? Every hand went up except Thomas's. He eventually raised his hand too, though reluctantly. Motion carried. Derek, you have the board's full support. Mr. Crawford will be terminated immediately and will be filing criminal charges if the investigation confirms what these emails suggest. Derek let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you all. Don't thank us yet. We're also implementing some changes. Derek, you're brilliant at what you do, but you've been carrying too much weight alone. We're restructuring the executive team. You'll have more support, more checks and balances. No more all-night sessions trying to fix problems by yourself. I understand, Miss Hayes. Margaret turned to Gemma with a smile. We'd like to offer you a position as assistant project manager. Your instincts and dedication are exactly what we need here. Interested? Gemma's heart soared. Yes, ma'am. Very interested. Facing the pastas, they left the boardroom. Derek's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his expression grew guarded. It's Rebecca, your ex. Yes. She must have heard about the board meeting. He answered the call. Rebecca. Yes, I'm fine. No, the board supported me. Rebecca, I understand you've been contacting my assistants. He paused, listening. I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. But you can't keep doing this. It's not fair to them or to you. Gemma watched his face as he listened, seeing compassion and regret there. After a few more minutes, he said goodbye and hung up. Ash. She's been trying to protect them from me. She thought if she warned them about my emotional unavailability, they wouldn't get hurt like she did. It's actually kind of sad. It is. But it's also time to move forward. I apologized. I told her I was working on being different, being better, and I wished her well. That's all I can do. They walked back to Derek's office in comfortable silence. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, painting everything in warm gold light. Derek closed the door and turned to face Gemma. So, assistant project manager. That's quite a promotion. It is. Though it means we won't be working together directly anymore, which means no more boss-assistant complications. Just to people who work in the same building and happen to be interested in each other. Gemma smiled. Happen to be interested? That's quite an understatement after everything that's happened. Derek stepped closer, his hands gentle as they cupped her face. You're right. Let me be more specific. I'm falling for you, Gemma Hayes. hard and fast, and in ways that terrify me. You walked into my life 24 hours ago and turned everything upside down. You made me feel things I thought I'd buried forever. You made me want to be more than just a machine who works until he drops. You made me want to live again. Tears pricked Gemma's eyes. Derek, I'm falling for you too, but I'm scared. What if this doesn't work? What if we hurt each other? Then we'll deal with it, together. No more running away, no more hiding behind walls. I promise you, Gemma, I'm going to try. Really try. To be the kind of man who deserves someone like you. You already are that man. You just needed to let yourself see it. Derek leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. But Gemma didn't want to pull away. She rose on her toes and met him halfway. Their lips touched softly, tentatively, like a question being asked and answered. Then the kiss deepened, becoming something more certain, more real. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Derek rested his forehead against hers. I want to do this right. Proper dates. Getting to know each other outside of work. Meeting your mother. Taking things slow. Slow sounds good. Though I have to say, we've already spent more time together in 24 hours than most couples do in weeks. He laughed, a sound Gemma was already becoming addicted to. True, we did things a bit backwards. Almost died together before even having a first date. Certainly a story to tell. Speaking of stories, Derek pulled back slightly. Tell me about yours. Not the resume version. The real version. What do you dream about? What makes you happy? Gemma settled onto the couch, and Derek sat beside her, close enough that their knees touched. I dream about designing buildings that matter. Not just expensive monuments to corporate wealth, but places where people live and work and feel safe. Community centers in struggling neighborhoods. Affordable housing that's actually beautiful. Schools that inspire kids to learn. That's ambitious. My father worked in construction before he died. Blue-collar jobs, nothing fancy. But he always said that buildings should serve people, not egos. I want to honor that philosophy. Derek took her hand, lacing their fingers together. What if I told you that's exactly the kind of work I want Ashford Design Group to move toward? We've been chasing prestige projects for too long. Maybe it's time to build something that actually matters. You're serious? Completely. The Henderson project is massive and will give us financial stability for years. But after that, I want to take on projects that make a difference. And I want you to lead some of them. Gemma's throat tightened with emotion. That's everything I've ever wanted. Then let's make it happen. Together. 6 months later, the community center in the Bronx was nearly complete. Gemma stood in the main hall, reviewing the final construction details with her team. Large windows flooded the space with natural light. The design was simple but beautiful, with warm wood tones and bright accent colors that made the building feel welcoming. Miss Hayes. The contractors have a question about the youth activity room. Gemma had gotten used to being called Miss Hayes in her professional capacity. Though her team usually called her Gemma, she walked over to discuss the issue, and by the time it was resolved, she noticed a familiar figure entering the building. Derek stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching her work with a smile on his face. Even after 6 months, the sight of him still made her heart skip a beat. What are you doing here? She asked, walking over to greet him. I wanted to see how the project was coming along, and I wanted to take my girlfriend to lunch. I'm working. You're always working. Come on, take a break. I promise to have you back in an hour. Gemma laughed. You've gotten softer. The old Derek would never have suggested lunch breaks. The old Derek was miserable. The new Derek knows that life is about more than work. He took her hand, and they walked outside into the bright spring afternoon. They found a small cafe nearby and ordered sandwiches. As they ate, Derek told her about his morning meetings, and she shared updates on the community center. Their conversation flowed easily, naturally, the way it had from that first night when walls started coming down. I have something to tell you, Derek said, as they finished eating. Margaret called me this morning. The board wants to make you a full project manager. Your own office, your own projects, a significant raise. Gemma's eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely. The community center project has impressed everyone. You've come in under budget, ahead of schedule, and the design has been featured in 3 architecture magazines. You're making a name for yourself, Gemma, independent of me, independent of our relationship. You're becoming a star in your own right. Pride swelled in her chest. I couldn't have done it without your support. You absolutely could have. But I'm glad I got to watch it happen. He reached across the table and took her hand. There's something else I want to talk about. The serious tone in his voice made her nervous. What? These past 6 months have been the happiest of my life. You've changed everything for me. You've taught me how to balance work and life, how to let people in, how to be vulnerable without falling apart. I'm a better man because of you. Derek, you're making me nervous. What are you trying to say? He smiled, that warm, genuine smile that still surprised her sometimes. I'm saying that I love you. I'm completely, totally, head over heels in love with you. And I know it's only been 6 months, and maybe it's too soon, but I don't want to wait to tell you. Life is short and precious, and I don't want to waste another moment not being honest about how I feel. Tears filled Gemma's eyes. I love you too. I've loved you since that night in your office when you finally let me see who you really are. Yeah. Derek stood and came around to her side of the table, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. They kissed there in the cafe, not caring about the other customers or the waitstaff watching with indulgent smiles. When they finally broke apart, Derek kept his arms around her. I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. Move in with me. I know my apartment is ridiculously big and overly formal, but we can redecorate. Make it feel like a home instead of a showroom. What do you think? Gemma pretended to consider it. Will I get closet space? Half of everything. Closets, drawers, bathroom counter. Complete equality. You'll actually leave work at a reasonable hour sometimes. I promise to try. No more all-nighters unless there's a genuine emergency. Then yes, I'll move in with you. Derek lifted her off her feet, spinning her around as she laughed. When he set her down, his expression turned serious again. There's one more thing. Your mother's medical bills. I want to help with them. Derek, no. That's too much. It's not. You're killing yourself trying to pay them off. Let me help, please. Not as your boss, not even as your boyfriend. Just as someone who cares about you and wants to make your life easier. Gemma wanted to refuse on principle, but the weight of those bills had been crushing her for years. The relief of having help would be immense. On one condition, it's a loan. I'll pay you back, Gemma. You don't have to. I need to. For myself, my pride. Call it whatever you want, but I need to know I'm contributing equally to this relationship. Derek studied her face and nodded. Okay. A loan with 0% interest and no deadline for repayment. Deal. Deal. The future 1 year later, Gemma stood in the completed community center for its grand opening. Over 200 people from the neighborhood had come to celebrate. Children ran through the halls excitedly exploring the youth activity rooms. Seniors examined the library and computer lab. Parents discussed the job training programs that would be offered. Derek stood beside her, his arm around her waist. You did this. You created something that's going to change lives. You did this. You took the risk on a project that didn't promise big profits. Best business decision I ever made. Though my best personal decision was locking us in that office together for the night, Gemma elbowed him playfully. That was a terrible decision that happened to work out well. Story of my life since I met you. Terrible decisions that work out perfectly. Margaret Phillips approached them, smiling broadly. Gemma, Derek. Wonderful turnout. This is exactly the kind of press Ashford Design Group needs. We've already had inquiries from 3 other cities wanting similar projects. That's wonderful, Gemma said. I'd love to replicate this model in other communities. I was hoping you'd say that. Derek and I have been discussing creating a division specifically for community-focused projects with you at the helm. Interested? Gemma looked at Derek, who grinned. Did you know about this? I may have made some suggestions to the board, but the decision was all Margaret's. I'm very interested, Gemma said, trying to contain her excitement. As Margaret walked away to greet other guests, Gemma turned to Derek. You keep making my dreams come true. That's the plan. For the rest of our lives, if you'll let me? The rest of our lives? That's a long commitment. I certainly hope so. Derek reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Gemma's breath caught. Derek, what are you doing? Something I should have planned better. Something that should probably wait for a more romantic setting. But I can't wait any longer. He opened the box to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond ring. Gemma Hayes, you walked into my life when I was locked behind walls of my own making. You broke through those walls with kindness, courage, and patience. You made me believe in love again, in hope, in the possibility of happiness. You're my partner in every sense of the word. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Gemma's face. Around them, people had started to notice what was happening. A hush fell over the crowd. Yes, yes, absolutely yes.